I'm here with psychic astrologer Nancy Arruda. Thank you for joining me today, Nancy. I'm so happy we could make this happen.
Me too.
So, one thing that I've heard quite often from people is, how do you know? When did you know that you had this psychic gift?
So I have been psychic my whole life, only I just thought it was normal to know things or see things and experience things. I'm highly sensitive to energy and things that go around. And what happened was when I got pregnant, I was 26 years old, and everything just got really, really loud. So it's like the volume got turned up. Because what happens when you're pregnant is your energy field opens so that you can receive the soul of the individual that's coming through you. And that channel stays open throughout your whole pregnancy. After you give birth, it doesn't close. So like you can talk to a lot of women, a lot of people who say like, all of a sudden I got pregnant and all of a sudden now I have all this intuition. And that's one of the reasons why. It's because a part of your channel opens up and it stays open. And that's where mother's intuition comes from as well. Right. However, with me, I didn't realize I was psychic when I was younger. And it wasn't until I started investigating my own psychic abilities that I recognized, okay, wait a minute, I am psychic. So there's phases in life that you go through that you have to start questioning, okay, what's normal, what's not normal, right? And for me, it's always been normal, but then I didn't realize it wasn't normal for everybody else. So one example is I'm a knower, I'm claircognizance, which means I know things. And I have this ability to access information in the universe through this channel of knowledge. So when you know something and you're younger, you don't have the ability necessarily to come out and say, oh, I knew that was going to happen. Like you would know something was going to happen, but you wouldn't be able to define it or communicate it in any way, shape, or form until you learn how your own abilities work. Right? So, for example, I would know what the teacher was going to say before she would say it. I know the lyrics to songs before I've even heard the song before, but I wouldn't be able to sing the song. I would only be able to repeat the lyric in my mind a second before, 2 seconds before you would hear the lyric. Right? So it can be a little confusing at times when you're younger, but once you get older and you develop your own communication skills, then it's easier to interpret what you know.
Right.
Right? So with time comes the ability to interpret your own intuitive abilities.
Interesting. So how would someone know if they have that ability or not?
Basically, you have to investigate it for yourself.
Yeah.
Right? So, and like I said, when I got pregnant, really strange, loud occurrences started happening. The biggest story I remember or experience that I had was I was on my way to work, 8 to 5 job, Monday to Friday kind of thing, or actually Tuesday to Saturday. And I got in the car, and then all of a sudden it's like 8:33. The clock in the car was like vibrating, right? Now it wasn't doing anything. It just energetically appeared to be capturing my attention very loudly.
Right.
And I'm like, 8:33, why do I have to know the time? So at the time I lived in the countryside. I drove down my driveway, and as I got to the edge of the driveway that met the road, all of a sudden in big black letters, the word break-in was written in the sky. And I'm like, oh, my house is going to get broken into today. And then my rational mind kicked in and went, well, that's ridiculous, and off to work I went. My husband decided to go home, my husband at the time decided to go home for lunch that day, and he called me to say, you're not going to believe this. And I'm like, what? He goes, the house was broken into.
Wow.
And I'm like, I know, of course it was. They wrote it in the sky. And it just seems so normal.
Right.
But then again, my rational mind kicks in and goes, wait a minute, who are they and how do they write in the sky?
Right.
Right? So that's what started my whole journey towards investigating my own intuitive or psychic abilities.
Very interesting.
And exploring.
Wow.
And discovering more. And then that's when I realized, okay, so maybe it's not normal. Right?
Do you feel like we all have that innate ability and it just needs to be honed in, or do some people have a special ability?
I think some people have an easier channel to accessing their ability.
Right.
I truly believe everybody has the ability to tap into their intuition or psychic gifts. Okay.
Right.
And to me, intuition and psychic abilities are kind of the same thing. You know, intuition is a word that's used that's more accepted by society. Psychic, not as easily accepted.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I use both freely, both words, intuitive, psychic. To me, it is the same. It's just one's probably more pronounced or louder. So if you can call yourself psychic, it's because you believe your intuition is strong. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. How long have you been offering your readings?
So my whole journey started, like I said, when I got pregnant. And it was interesting because in high school, I actually purchased my first tarot deck. And I was a closet reader in my room where I'd play with cards. And but I was also very scared of it at the same time, right? Because of religious background, etc. You know, beliefs that said you shouldn't be doing that.
Right.
So my mother discovered my cards about a year and a half after I was playing with them. And when she found them, I got in huge trouble. So it's kind of like, you know, that's when I put it all aside and continued on with my journey. And then again, when I got pregnant, the symbols and the images that I was receiving at the time were so loud that I couldn't ignore it anymore. So it was pretty much around that time that I started re-exploring doing readings. Right? So again, I started in high school, put it away, and then, so that was 1995.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's been a while.
Yes. And what encompasses a tarot reading? What is it? What is it all about, a tarot reading?
So with the tarot, basically it's a deck of 78 cards. And it encompasses 2 decks in that one deck. So one is kind of like playing cards, right? You got the ace to the tens, and then you have the court cards, which is the jack, queen, king. There is an additional court card. And then there's also an additional deck that goes with it called the Major Arcana, which speaks to the lessons of our soul and the journey of the soul. And when you combine them together, you pick up different facets within somebody's life. So for example, if I'm giving somebody a reading, if I'm sitting with them in person, I prefer that they pick their own cards, okay? And I let them pick it at random. So I'm not like cut the deck 3 times and then take off the top. Pick randomly throughout the deck, wherever you feel inspired to pick. They pick their cards, I put it in a spread or a layout on the table, and then I just start talking. Right? And basically what I see is I'll get different feelings, I'll get different visions. There will be images in the cards that start to jump out or vibrate at me. And, you know, it all works with symbology. So sometimes the colors will jump out more. And then I just start talking, and it's up to the person I'm speaking to make sense of what I'm saying. Right? Because I have no idea how it applies.
Right.
Okay. I just communicate the little messages that I'm receiving, and I'm interpreting them as well. So not only am I seeing and feeling the cards, but I'm also hearing spirit at the same time, influencing where I should be taking the conversation.
So there's a lot going on all at the same time for you that you have to read and
it's
understand.
Like most people don't realize throughout their day they've got their 5 senses working. Okay. And you don't think about what you're looking at. You don't think about every detail of everything that you're looking at. You don't think about every sound that you're hearing, right? Or every sensation that's going through your physical body. Or if something touches you, you don't really, you know, tap into how it's touching you, right? So it's kind of like turning the volume on your eyes, ears, nose, because I also get scents where I smell things. I can taste different things when I'm giving readings as well. So it's all of my senses become heightened at once.
Right.
And then I have to interpret that. Sometimes the message gets lost in interpretation. But typically when that happens, it's because whoever's sitting for a reading isn't supposed to understand what I'm saying at that point in time. They're not allowed to take what I'm saying to influence their choices.
Right.
Okay, so, but if they listen back to their reading, because I will record them if people want them recorded, if they listen back to their reading in 6 months' time, and I'll say the same thing, then they'll be like, oh, wow, now I get it. So not everything will make sense when you're having your reading.
Right.
Right? Some stuff doesn't register for 6 months. Some stuff can register 10 years later. Right?
Yeah.
Because one thing spirit doesn't operate in is time.
Yes.
Right? It's only humans that operate on a clock.
Exactly. This is true. What does it mean to be you spoke about metaphysical, right? The metaphysical. What does it mean to be a metaphysical practitioner?
Right. So that's pretty much my title, is I classify myself as a metaphysical practitioner. And what metaphysical means is beyond the physical. So it's everything that is beyond the physical reality. Okay. The majority of people spend 99% of their day focusing on the physical reality, when in fact the physical reality is only 1% of who you are.
Right.
There's 99% that is beyond the physical reality. So everything I do, yes, I'm in the physical reality as well, so I have to take care of my own physical needs.
Right.
But everything that I do when I'm sitting with somebody is not in this reality. A part of my consciousness actually goes out of my body to access that information. Right? So that's where I'm working in the reality that's beyond the physical reality, which is the metaphysical reality. In that, I do readings. I help people heal on many different levels, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, physically. And I also do etheric healings and meditations. I used to facilitate a lot of workshops. I don't do as many anymore, simply because the majority of people don't want to take the time to be there physically.
Right.
And I'm not really inclined to do things online, although I have to get there.
Slowly, baby steps.
Slowly. That's one of my issues.
Well, it will come in time, I think,
will.
right?
Yeah, everything will.
That's what we're doing here.
Yeah.
Maybe. And what is the difference between a tarot reading and an astrology reading?
Okay, so with an astrology reading, astrology readings are based on your own unique energetic signature that takes place when you're born. So based on your day of birth, including the year, time of birth, so whether it was AM or PM, and the town and country you're born in, it's like a snapshot of the universe is captured in that moment in your own genetic programming or your own cellular structure.
Right.
And you are an energetic vibration of the universe. We're born in the universe. We're a part of the universe. The universe is a part of us. Everything is all connected, right? So if you believe in that philosophy, because some people don't, and that's okay, but if you believe in that everything is all connected philosophy, then if you can understand the different energetic vibrations of planets, and then you get a better understanding of yourself, okay, through astrology. Astrology is a great tool to try and identify who you are. Most people go around believing who they're not. Right? We have these false ideas and false beliefs about ourselves.
Yes.
And when you're ready to get to that place where you truly want to identify with your authentic self, your purest essence, if you study astrology, you can get a lot of answers around who you are or why you behave certain ways. So we all have the ability to tap into our own astrological chart and become a better expression of who we are.
Yes.
Right? So with astrology readings, yes, I start with your natal chart, but then I also go to how old are you now? Right? So I do this chart that's called a progress chart, which tells me all about your own evolution and how you've evolved to the age that you're at now based on where you live now. And then I take a look at what's happening in the sky today and interact that with your natal chart and your progress chart. and it will tell me specific energetic things that you are experiencing or will experience for a period up to 1 year.
Interesting. And it seems as though astrology has more of a science for those who are more linear in their thinking.
Yes.
Than the tarot, right?
Absolutely.
So in comparison, people who are more science oriented and who are more believers in that area may have a better understanding that way and may gravitate more towards that.
Yes. Because I am also very rational and logical, astrology was a great tool for me because it allowed me to blend the two hemispheres of my brain together,
Right.
the creative and the rational, right? So yes, if you're a highly analytical individual or you're a very rational individual, very practical individual, then astrology is the best tool for you in terms of wanting to have a reading, simply because it allows you to access something that is tangible. So even though we can't touch the planets, we know they're there scientifically, right?
Right.
So it gives us that logical twist to it. Whereas the tarot, there's really no logic to it. It's all creative. Yes, people can learn the tarot, and anybody who has intuitive abilities that are interested in learning the tarot, I say learn it. It takes years to master. Okay. And there's so much information in it, but there's more of a creative component to accessing that information versus astrology gives you that rational channel to follow. So, yeah.
Cool. And I think you may have some information for me.
I did. So I
because
printed
I
off
gave you mine.
your astrological chart. I also have it on my laptop, but I think maybe this might be easier if the camera's focusing in on it or not. Doesn't matter. But yeah, so astrology is all about time and space. Okay. So, and my little joke is, this is what you look like when you were born.
I was very round.
Yes. So what we're looking at here is a natal chart, okay? And a natal chart is simply that. It is the chart or a snapshot of the universe when you were born, and it's put on a two-dimensional plane, okay? Because we're looking at a flat sheet of paper.
Right.
So we don't see the universe in a three-dimensional format, we're seeing it on a two-dimensional format. And astrology is comprised of time and space. Okay, so yes, you were born on Earth, but where on the Earth were you born? And because if you're born at the exact same time and date as somebody else, but you're on the other side of the Earth, you're going to have a different expression in your astrological chart. Because what we're looking at is, we're looking at this wheel energy that's divided into 12 sections, okay? And those are called houses. And what houses are areas of life. So each house depicts an area of life. And that's based on the time and the space that you were born. So houses are really important, like your time of birth is important to know exactly what your houses are. There's many, many different house systems, many different methods of astrology, okay? And then we look at all these larger symbols on the inner wheel are planets, okay? So it'll tell me where every planet is on the day and time that you were born. And then it'll tell me what sign those planets are in. So, for example, a lot of people, when they look at their horoscope, they're looking at their sun sign, okay? And it's the easiest planet to try and determine where it was when you were born, because it follows that orbit, okay? And every approximately 30 days, it will change signs, right? So the other thing about the sun is it depicts our personality, okay? So it will speak directly to our ego, our personality, or our sense of spirit.
Right.
Okay, and that most people are aware of their own personality. Okay, so but that's only one aspect of astrology. We work with all the planets in the sky, and based on time and place, you know, we take a look at the moon. So we know already that you have the sun in Scorpio. Okay, so when you read your horoscope, you read Scorpio, right? Our lunar sign influences us much more than our sun sign does, because it speaks to our emotional nature. Okay, so if you want to understand your emotions, then you actually have to read your lunar sign, not your sun sign,
Right.
right? And this is where some people can be like, oh, I'm not like my sun sign at all, right? Because if you're more of an emotional individual, then you're picking up on that energy, right? So you have sun in Scorpio, okay? And Scorpio is one of those signs that have the worst reputation. A lot of people think Scorpios are evil, right? Now, you meet Kim, and you don't pick up on that vibe at all. You're very soft, gentle nature, right? So when I like tap into your energy, yes, you have the ability to go deep, but you also have this very soft, gentle side to you. Okay, most people will not tap into that soft, gentle side when you mention the sign Scorpio. Okay, so yes, Scorpio is a water sign. You can get that soft, gentle nature from a Scorpio, but you have to know them, first of all. They don't share that with everybody. Yours is a little bit stronger because you have Moon in Pisces, which is even a softer energy. Okay, so you're dealing with this double water element, which makes you, number one, you're very intuitive, whether you know it or not. Okay, so you are very, very intuitive, not just because of your sun and your moon. You have a lot of Scorpio influence in your chart. And water signs are the intuitive signs. So that's Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. So when I tap into your Pisces nature, that's where that very soft, spiritual, kind of let go, let God energy comes from with you. Okay, it's not coming from the Scorpio. It's coming from your Pisces moon. Right? The other thing that I like to look at right away is your rising sign, which is based on your time of birth. And that's found right at your first house cusp. Okay, and yours is Aquarius. Okay, so based on your time of birth, which I believe for you is an approximate time, right?
Yeah.
But it's pretty solid, the Aquarius energy for you. Aquarius rising is that friendly energy that you often project. Okay, so our rising sign is our second personality energy in a chart, right? So when I look at, you know, when you first told me you were a Scorpio, I'm like, oh, I gotta be careful of Kim. But then once I got to know you, and I'm like, no, I don't. She's soft, she's sweet, she's kind, compassionate. So that's a blend of all of who you are, not just your sun sign.
Right.
Okay. All right. So other things that I look at, like you have a lot of Scorpio energy. You have Mercury in Scorpio, Venus in Scorpio, Jupiter in Scorpio, Sun in Scorpio. And then I also use 5 major asteroids, and you have Vesta in Scorpio as well. All of this energy is taking place in your 9th house of spirituality, higher beliefs. Now, with the Scorpio energy, Scorpios are here to transform and change, not just themselves, but also anyone that they interact with. And you're doing that through 9th house energy, which is on a spiritual level. So you're helping people to transform spiritually, and that's a part of your soul's purpose. How you choose to do that is totally up to you. Okay, so yes, you do that through yoga, you do that through, even on the physical, you help people transform on a physical level through diet and nutrition, right? So it doesn't matter how you do it, it's part of your purpose is to really help people let go of who they used to be to embrace more of who they truly are. Does that make sense to you?
Absolutely.
Okay. And you're doing it, a lot of it, through the tool of yoga. Okay. So when I look to soul's purpose energy, because when I do readings, I much prefer to do spiritual readings, which is kind of like what we're doing here right now.
Right.
I'm telling you about some of your gifts, right? And some of your lessons that come up. One of the things I look at is the North Node, and you have the North Node in the sign of Aquarius. Okay, which means you don't necessarily always follow a traditional path. Okay, it doesn't mean you don't have any traditional beliefs. Okay, it just means that when it comes to you moving forward through your life, you have to do things unconventionally. Okay, and not necessarily traditionally, right?
Right.
So if you always try to follow that traditional path, right, or what some people would call, you know, focusing more on the practical plane, or following the rules of society, it won't work for you. Okay, so you have to be a little more unusual than some. Does that make sense?
It does.
It's interesting because North Node in Aquarius, yoga is ruled by the sign of Aquarius. So everything in life has an astrological rulership. Okay? Every part of the body has an astrological rulership.
Right.
And when I look to Aquarius energy and you have North Node in Aquarius, I'm like, oh, that's why she's a yoga instructor. Okay? But you're here to help break some of those traditions that don't serve all of humanity.
Right.
Right? So that each person can find their own unique way of being truthful to themselves. Right? Truth is also very important to you. Okay? So honesty and truth, living your truth, is something that you must do in this lifetime. If you don't live your truth, there's consequences for you personally.
Right. Yeah.
Right? And people will say to me, well, that's like a very common statement for everyone. And yes, it can be interpreted that way. But if I'm saying something in a reading to an individual, it's because there's more emphasis on it for you specifically.
Yes.
Okay?
Understand.
So, because if you don't live your truth, that's when all that negative Scorpio energy comes up and bites you.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm talking about,
I
don't
do
you?
know what you're talking about.
Okay. Because it won't come up and bite everybody.
Yes.
Right? But for you, it's like you have to be aligned with your own truth, whatever that is.
Yeah,
Right?
definitely.
And nobody can tell you what your truth is. Only you can discover your truth for yourself. Right? Other things that I notice. So you have a very deep, penetrating mind. Okay? So when you think something, you don't think of things on a superficial level. You go deep. You're always looking for what's the core around this thought process, or why am I thinking this at such a deep level? Okay? So there's not a lot of superficial thoughts that go through your mind. Okay? Everybody does have some, but not a lot going through your mind. What's interesting is you were born with Venus retrograde in the sign of Scorpio. Okay? And whenever we see a retrograde, and what retrograde means for people who don't know what retrograde means is all planets follow a forward motion around the sun. And every now and then, they will slow down on their path. And when they slow down, it will appear from the perspective of Earth that that planet is traveling backwards. And one way that we can interpret that and say, well, what do you mean it appears like it's traveling backwards? Is if you've ever been on a subway and you're parked at the station, okay, and then all of a sudden the other subway car going in the opposite direction goes flying by you. It will feel like you're being pulled backwards, okay? So when we experience a retrograding planet, it's the energy of that planet is pulling you back for some reason. So when we have it in a natal chart, it's you're continuing lessons from a prior lifetime. If you believe in past lives, some people do, some people don't, okay? Or there's a lesson that your soul, if you don't believe in past lives, really, really wants you to understand. So it's going to limit your ability to run past that lesson. Okay,
Right,
so it'll
right.
feel like you're repeating something over and over and over again.
Yes.
Okay. With Venus, we're dealing with two areas of life. Okay. Money, our personal values and beliefs, what we value and believe in, and relationships. Okay. Because Venus is all about love and beauty and money. Okay. Those things that we find aesthetically pleasing. So for you, some of your challenges may be, because it doesn't mean it has to be all areas of what that planet encompasses. It could just be a part of it, right? So either financial difficulties from time to time, as well as relationship difficulties from time to time. So with Venus retrograde, it doesn't mean that you're always doomed, okay, in those areas of life. It just means you're challenged. And then once you learn the lesson around it, then the energy can move or flip for you. Okay. Other things. So a part of your really relaxed energy, because you are very, very relaxed, isn't just your moon in Pisces. It's also the fact that you have Mars in Libra. And Mars is the motivation planet. It's what gives us drive and energy. It can also trigger our anger. or frustrations that we have. And being a Scorpio, you have two rulerships. So every sign rules a planet, or a planet rules a sign. And with Scorpio, it has a dual rulership. So there's a lot of emphasis on your Mars for a couple of reasons. One, Scorpio can rule the planet Mars just as it rules the planet Pluto. But also Scorpio naturally rules the 8th house, and your Mars is in the 8th house. So you have a strong Mars based on house placement. But when I look at sign placement, you have Mars in Libra. And Libra's kind of like that balance sign, right? So there's this energy of you being able to balance your drive and motivation. So there's times where you have a lot of it, you know, you got to do what you got to do, and you're channeling all that intensity into your Mars. But then you might not get as angry as some people do, or you may not have as many frustration moments as some people, because it's in the sign of Libra, which means it's a little bit more balanced for you.
Right.
Okay. And if I think about what you do, because I know what you do, I'm going to say when you were younger, you may have had a lot of energy, okay, physical energy, a lot of drive, a lot of motivation. But as you got older, you used the tool of yoga to help balance that out within yourself.
Absolutely.
Right? So you found your center through yoga, but you've had the ability to find that center. Yes. See, if your Mars wasn't in Libra, then you'd still have a lot of that drive, a lot of that need to get things done all the time.
Yes.
Right? And I know you still have that because you do a lot, okay? But it's not as intense as what it could be if it was in a different sign.
Definitely, yeah.
Right?
And maybe more internalized.
Yes.
Sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, because you can pull the energy in, right? Yeah. You also have Pluto in the 8th house, which makes your Pluto very strong as well. And Pluto is the transformer, okay? You're at the end of your Pluto generation, meaning when Pluto's in a sign, it's in a sign anywhere from 10 to 32 years, okay? And yours is like towards the end of your generation, right? So not the generation of the year that you were born in, but your Pluto generation.
Okay.
So there is, you can be a little hard on yourself sometimes with this placement, okay? Because there is that perfectionist energy coming out. When Pluto's in the sign of Virgo, that is the perfectionist generation. And if we think about people who are born around the same time we are, you know, their need for customer service is through the roof. They need to be in control of everything that's going on in terms of the details of what's transpiring.
Right.
Right? So there's more of an emphasis for details with you than there would be somebody who was born 3 years after you. Okay, when Pluto had changed signs. So with that, it's, yes, when you were younger, you may have been very self-critical or very critical of your surroundings. But again, that's something you may have let go of as you got older.
Right.
Right? Does that make sense?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Definitely.
All right. Another biggie that I like to look at, and most people don't like the planet Saturn, but I'd like to look at where Saturn is, because Saturn has rulership over our physical reality, right? And your Saturn is in the sign of Taurus, and it is retrograde. So Taurus's natural ruler is Venus, okay? And you have Venus in Scorpio. Venus doesn't like being in the sign of Scorpio, okay? It also doesn't like being in the sign of Aries. So it's two uncomfortable placements, okay? Because if a planet's in its natural sign, then that planet loves being in there. It'll be emphasized. If it's in its opposite sign, it's like that planet is being repressed. So it doesn't enjoy being in that expression.
Okay.
But where you have Saturn and Taurus, you're here to learn lessons about being human. Okay, so a huge part of your soul's energy is like, I want to tap into the spiritual reality. I want to be in the spiritual reality all the time. And that's a huge part of who you are. But Saturn's like, no, 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 no. You need to be here. You need to be present. You need to be in this moment. Okay, whenever you find yourself trying to jump too far ahead, or if you're reflecting too far back, you'll have a little wake-up call that brings you back to this moment. Okay. So Saturn is what limits and restricts us. And that's why most people don't like Saturn, because it's saying, no, you can't have that. It's the boundaries planet. It's saying, no, we have to set these boundaries before you can attain something.
Right.
But if you don't limit and restrict your energy, you can't create or hold on to anything. Okay, and that's how it's used beneficially, right? So with Saturn in Taurus, again, challenges with your own personal values and beliefs, challenges with your finances. It'll feel like you never have enough to get to where you need to go, right? And again, it'll feel that way. It doesn't mean it is that way,
Right.
okay? Because sometimes when we feel something, we think that is our reality, where that's not the case at all, right? Feel and real are two different things. And yes, sometimes our feelings are real, but when we're looking at the practical reality, we can't encompass our feelings in that necessarily.
Right.
We have to do what we need to do in order to survive.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you may not have liked talking when you were younger, or if you did, you had to be in the right setting. Okay. So you would have found there was a period in life where your voice was repressed. Okay, and it didn't matter what you tried to do, even if you tried to come up with the correct answer, you couldn't get it out. Okay, but there's a reason why your voice was repressed when you were younger versus when you're older, and there's this energy of really processing what it is that you value and believe in, learning how to communicate that effectively. Okay, because if you have an effective communication, your voice will open up and sing.
Right.
Okay, but if it doesn't serve you and it doesn't serve everyone around you, you'll choke on your words. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It totally does.
And that's how Saturn is repressing you
Yeah.
on some level. Okay, but you're supposed to be doing something with all your words, just not yet. Okay, because Saturn also represents age, wisdom, and time. Okay, so you might get to a point in your life where you're like, you know what? I need to share my ideas. I want to express myself verbally or through the written word. Okay, have you ever thought of writing?
Yeah. Absolutely. I have.
Okay.
I've done a little bit, and I'd like to do more.
Yeah. So this is when we have Saturn in the third house. Yes, there may be challenges in lower education. Okay, so you may have had difficulty in school on some level, or even just communicating what you knew.
Yeah.
Okay, but with age comes the ability to learn how to develop and communicate that voice even more. So there is a potential for you to be writing when you're older. Okay, yeah, you could start now, but it might not go anywhere for a little while longer,
Right.
right?
Patience.
Patience, yes, absolutely. And then I was thinking as well, okay, so before you got into yoga, you got into nutrition and wellness, okay?
Yes.
And I'm like, okay, so where's that coming from? Because it's not coming from your Scorpio, except for the ability to help transform someone, whether it's yourself or others, okay? And so as I look deeper and I'm like, okay, so what rules health? Well, the sixth house rules health. And what rules nutrition or food? And that would be also a sixth house energy, but the nurturing part of nutrition comes from the sign of Cancer. So when I looked at your chart, I'm like, oh, Cancer on the sixth house. Okay, so your sixth house, which is all about health, wellness, and etc. Okay, health and wellness, is ruled for you by the sign of Cancer, which is the food component of health and wellness. Okay, so we can pick up in people's charts different aspects of why they're attracted to the careers that they're attracted to. Okay, it's just you have to have an understanding of what everything is ruled by. And I don't know everything about astrology. Okay, I think any astrologer that says they know everything is coming from a place of ego, because astrology is huge.
Right.
There's financial astrology, there's weather astrology, there's social astrology, there's friendship astrology, relationship astrology, financial astrology, you name it, medical astrology, there's a
Right.
type of astrology.
Yeah.
Okay. So it is a huge field.
Yes.
And so I don't think any one person can know absolutely everything about astrology. Right?
Right.
So one thing with being an astrologer is the need to constantly reference and look things up. So if I don't know something, I have a rulership book that I use, and basically it'll have a keyword and it'll tell me what rules it, right? So when I don't know something, I always look it up. Okay, and I believe it should be something that every astrologer should have in their toolbox is
Yes.
the rulership book, right?
Makes sense.
So nutrition and food is something that I've researched a lot on, or health, for example. I've researched a lot on health. So, like, I've had people come to me with health ailments and say, "Okay, what's going on here?" And I will look for the astrological rulership of any of the organs that are connected to that health issue, right? As well as the health issue itself, and then look for an astrological signature to say, okay, this is when it started,
Right.
right? Because a lot of our health stuff gets triggered prior to us even knowing we have a health issue,
Yes.
right? So I can go back to that point and say, okay, this is what was happening. What else was going on in your life then? Because anything that's going on in your life at that point in time contributes to any type of ailment that you may be experiencing,
Right.
right? And even just by sharing that knowledge with people, it helps them to heal. It helps them to do any of the psychological work that they need to do on their own to process what transpired then.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's so much in astrology.
It's so deep. It's so vast.
Yeah. So that's just like a little snapshot of your natal chart.
Yeah,
okay?
that's amazing.
When somebody has a reading, I focus about 20, 30 minutes on the natal chart.
Yeah.
Okay. Unless we're going more into a soul purpose reading, then I spend a little bit more time on the soul purpose energy.
Right.
And then I pull up what's called a progress chart. And that's based on your current age, right? And then that's part 2 of the reading.
Yeah.
And then part 3 of the reading, if they want a predictive reading to find out, okay, what's going to happen over the next year, that's where I get what we call a transit chart, which is where the planets are in the sky today and how are they interacting with the planets in your natal chart, how are they interacting with the planets in your progress chart,
Yeah.
etc.
And I'm sure if there was a specific question that someone had about something that they were dealing with in their life, then you
Yes.
could help them with that.
That's
around
when I
that
go,
one,
yeah,
right?
so if you have a specific question, there's 2 ways that I can do question readings, okay? One is you have a question that's stumping you. I don't even need to look at your chart. The moment I understand that question, I punch up a date, a chart of that exact moment that I process that question. And then I look for the answer in that. That's called a hooray reading, where it's just me focusing on that one question, okay? If people are concerned, like, for example, about their career and they want to know, like, should they make a career move, that kind of thing, then I can look into their chart and give them the best dates within a time period that they
Right.
should be looking at career change. I can assist with what field do you want to go into based on 6th house energy, based on 10th house energy, based on where Saturn is and how Saturn's interacting. So, like, there's certain signatures that I look for in a chart that will say, okay, this is the area you need to be moving in, right?
Right.
And it's one thing for me to say, okay, this is the area you should be moving into. And now it's another thing for that individual to process what I'm saying.
Right.
Okay. So I may say, well, yeah, Kim, like, you should be a nutritional doctor. Okay. And, you know, you want to go get your medical degree to go with that. And you'd be like, well, yeah, I really wanted to be a doctor, but I don't want to do that schooling. Well, then that cancels that out.
Right.
Okay. If
Right.
you don't do the practical steps that are required to get you into that career, or if you believe you don't have the intellectual capacity to follow that chain, it won't happen.
Right.
Right? But if the energetic signature's in your chart, then you do have the intellectual capacity to follow it. Okay? You just need to believe that you have the intellectual capacity to follow it.
Yes.
You need to believe that you can succeed at anything that you do.
Yeah.
Right?
And if you are doing a reading for astrology based on someone's specific questions, you can draw on also psychic abilities throughout that reading,
Yes.
not just based on the houses that you're speaking about right now, but also various different areas.
Yes,
Right?
I can pull it all in.
Pull it all together and then create your reading from that.
Yeah, because when I do astrology, I don't just do rational, logical astrology. I'm psychic.
Yeah.
Okay, so insight is still coming to me,
Yeah.
right? I don't turn that part off in an astrology reading. There's a lot of astrologers out there that'll be like, oh yeah, no, that has nothing to do with psychic ability. It's all intellectual. And that's how it works for them,
Right.
right? But for me, it's more of an intuitive soul understanding.
And the astrology is kind of works sort of like a fulcrum, I guess.
Yeah.
You know, to draw upon.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's a doorway.
Kind of like the tarot cards, I
Yep.
guess, right? You pull a card, and the card itself isn't telling you information. The card is spurring that information or spawning that information.
So one thing I do, even with tarot readings, is the first thing I do when you sit down is I ask you your birthday and I ask you how old you are. Okay? By somebody giving me their birthday, they're giving me permission to enter into their energy field. You don't give me your birthday, I can't read you.
Right.
Right? And whether it's a safety mechanism, I can read you. I can't read you as openly.
Right.
So there's a part of you that's like, no, I'm not going to give you that answer. I'm not going to let you in. Right? You have to let me in for me to give you the most accurate reading I can. Right? You know, it comes up with skeptics all the time. Well, I'm a skeptic. And the first thing I say to them is, why are you having a reading? If you don't believe in this, then why are you sitting here? Because I don't need to be challenged. Right? I believe in what I do. I can still give you information, but if you're a skeptic, your mind's not going to be open to receiving that information.
Right.
Right? Or listening to it or honoring it. And if you can't honor what I do, I don't want to do it for you. No offense.
Of course.
Right?
Of course. Wow, that's it's very interesting to see where it all comes from and how it all ties together.
Yeah.
Yeah, very, very interesting. I think that pretty much wraps up. I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to share. Is there anything else you can think of that you wanted to share?
I just wanted to share about the meditations that I do as well.
Oh, yes, please.
Right?
Yes. These
So
are very powerful.
on select
wonderful,
evenings here at Vidya's, I do offer meditations as well.
Yes.
And again, another really good self-help kind of exploration process. And my meditation is a little bit different than what some people offer, because the first thing I do is discuss all the astrological energy that's going on and how it may be impacting us.
Yes.
Right? Based on our emotions, our thoughts, our psychological energies that are going crazy, okay? And then we go into a meditation that either allows us to enhance that energy if it's positive and beneficial, or release the energy if we feel it's not serving us.
Right. Yeah.
And then, so everybody will listen to my voice through a guided meditation. I hardly ever prepare my meditations in advance. I just kind of like wing it and see where spirit guides me, right? Because I'm shown through different channels. Sometimes I'm told what to say. Sometimes I'm shown visuals, and then I have to interpret, okay, how can I make that so everybody understands what I'm seeing? Right? And then other times it's just coming from somewhere that I don't know where it's coming from. And so everybody will hear the exact same meditation, but everybody will experience it differently.
Yes.
And I find it so powerful because when you experience your own journey, okay, and then when I go back and, you know, kind of dissect the meditation, well, we had to go through this part of the journey so that we could understand this astrological influence and what we need to let go of, everybody's kind of like, oh, wow, right? But everybody will have a different response.
Yes.
And then at the end of the meditation, after we go through it, I do dissect it. I break it down, and I leave it up for each person to interpret their own experience in that meditation. And it's like going into your subconscious mind, moving around some of the garbage, throwing some stuff out, and bringing in some more light as opposed to darkness into the subconscious mind. And it literally changes people, right? So they'll be like, wow, that was really powerful, impactful. I feel so much better, you know. And if you don't get anything, the only thing you will receive is feeling more at peace. Yes. So even if you don't get any deep psychological understanding from your own meditative journey, you're going to leave in a place of peace.
It's very true.
Right? So, and that's why I think it's very powerful. Right?
I agree. Yeah. I have been to a few of Nancy's meditations, and they are very powerful.
Yes.
And I would highly recommend it. So I thank you very much
Thank
for being here today. That was very enlightening.
I'm glad.
And I hope you enjoyed it as well. Thank you very much.